Never shall innocent blood be shed, yet the blood of the wicked shall flow like a river. The three shall spread their blackened wings and be the vengeful striking hammer of God. You people have been chosen to reveal our existence to the world. You will witness what happens here today, and you will tell of it later. All eyes to the front. You must watch, dear. It'll all be over soon.
Now you will receive us! We do not ask for your poor, or your hungry. We do not want your tired and sick.
It is your corrupt we claim.
It is your evil that will be sought by us.
With every breath, we shall hunt them down.
Each day, we will spill their blood till it rains down from the skies.
Do not kill, do not rape, do not steal. These are principles which every man of every faith can embrace.
These are not polite suggestions. These are codes of behavior. And those of you that ignore them will pay the dearest cost.
There are varying degrees of evil. We urge you lesser forms of filth, not to push the bounds and cross over into true corruption, into our domain.
For if you do, one day you will look behind you and you will see we three. And on that day, you will reap it.
And we will send you to whatever God you wish.
And shepherds we shall be, for thee, my lord, for thee. Power hath descended forth from thy hand. May swiftly carry out thy command. So we shall flow river forth to thee, and teeming with souls shall it ever be.
In nomine Patri.
Et Filii, Spiritus Sancti. How far are we gonna take this star?
The question is not how far. The question is, do you possess the Constitution, the depth of faith to go as far as is needed?
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello.
And because my connection is shit, I'm going now to take my camera off.
Oh, okay. So tonight, the title of our stream is Stump the Chump. Plutarch, I think this stream was your idea. What was your thought on this one?
So after Elena's stream on Saturday, we were struggling to come up with ideas for the show. And I said, wait a minute. What if we ask Steve to come up with an idea, but he does not tell Nick or I a thing about what the idea is going to be about? No notes, no discussion ahead of time. And then Nick and I have to react and engage our brains in whichever direction that Steve is trying to go without any preparation whatsoever. That was my idea.
Yep. Okay, because about a year ago, early on, we got into a bit of an entanglement. And someone criticized us and said, "Oh, those guys over there, they have everything scripted out." That's laughable.
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
Well, one person leaves, the other two
we'll
react.
send our notes out.
Yeah, okay,
we'll send our notes out ahead of time.
We don't script out who's going to jump in at this point, who's going to carry this point, who's going to carry that point,
correct,
where the debates are. No, it's just free flow with notes. So
Plutarch and I have no notes. We have no idea what's going on.
We know nothing about tonight.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm a bit devious. So this is even going to be more fun than you thought. So,
damn, I shouldn't have drank 3 beers. Shit.
Nah, beer is just mental lubricant.
Oh shit.
This stream is
versus being in my own fucking head. But
okay, this stream is extemporaneous to test the mental mettle of Nick and Plutarch. Okay, for any of you who don't know the word extemporaneous, that means just off the cuff. Here it is. Here's the topic. Speak on it or write 500 words on this topic. No preparation.
This is your This is your Pentecostal and Baptist sermons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Nick and Plutarch.
Okay. What am I supposed to do? I mean, I recognize the cartoon, but this is already going in a very no, this is going to be an uncomfortable one, isn't it?
So Plutarch, which one's the white? Which one's the black?
Well, they're both holding dynamite, so I can be the black hat. I can be the black hat.
No, you'll be the black pillar. You'll be the black pillar. I'll be the white pillar. Even though everybody calls me a black pillar, but look, the pill is actually red. I mean, reality has a way of bursting in on shit. Okay, we're reading way too much fucking into one fucking image. Okay,
yes,
there we go.
Okay, this is not going to be Nick versus Plutarch, but this kind of illustrates where I'm going to take it. Okay, for anyone just listening and not seeing the image, this is the old Mad Magazine Spy versus Spy image. You know, the black spy and the white spy. Mad Magazine was big, I don't know, in the 80s, maybe the 90s. Then it went away. So it's kind of a classic image. So where are we going to go from here? We haven't
don't
decided
know.
the stream yet. We better decide that. Okay, so either Nick or Plutarch is going to lead this stream. Heads,
Oh, now you're being real difficult here.
tails is Plutarch. Okay, so we got to flip a coin.
Is that what we do with marriage?
Flip a coin.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Okay, so I need to flip the coin. Heads is Nick, tails is Plutarch. So we're going to flip. Heads, Nick is going to lead the stream.
What the fuck? I don't know what I'm leading.
Nick, you don't even know what the topic is yet.
I have no idea. Oh, damn.
Oh. Well, this was supposed to be a test of you. I wanted to make it a good test. Okay, now here's the topic. Ooh, I better add it to the page. Okay, here's our topic. Dichotomy. Now, would you like some prompts to know where you're going to go and some rules?
Well, shit, you just flipped a coin, so therefore we're already in it. We're already in a dichotomy since you flipped the damn coin.
I know. Well, you saw the image at the beginning. It was a dichotomy.
Are we talking about light versus darkness, male versus female?
Hey, you are
angels versus demons? I mean, shit.
You are leading this. You know, it's extemporaneous.
I don't know.
Where are you going to go?
I thought you were leading. Damn.
You got bushwhacked, Nick.
Okay, so earlier, prior to the stream, what was our text about? What were you going on about? What were we talking about immediately prior to this? That, hey, you've already done the prep work. You didn't even know it. So let me bring up some prompts.
Oh, this is all the so we're always on the left here.
Yes, we are. However,
oh my gosh.
However, given what we were discussing 10 minutes ago.
Actually, I don't think the last point is proper. Dabney embraces all three.
Okay, well, we're not to that point yet. You know, you're leading the stream. You can say it's a false dichotomy.
He has a book called Evangelical Eloquence, is one of Southern Presbyterian's 19th century Presbyterian views on preaching, where he actually embraces logic, logos, ethos, and pathos as proper, but they're balanced between the three. But you rarely see that today.
Yeah, we all see ethos or pathos mostly, and then some ethos, and logos is the redheaded stepchild.
Oh, but everything's but logos is your base.
Well, it has to be because without it, you're not anchored to anything. You can literally just decide tomorrow that something I want it to mean this now, so it means this now.
Are they equal, or is it a hierarchy?
Well, I would say it's a Trinitarian essence of logos, ethos, and pathos. They're all interrelated yet there's an objective logos, ethos, and pathos in the essence of God, who is the existence of three distinct persons in, but not separate, equal in power and glory in the Godhead, the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, where there is a logos, there is truth, there is a reason, there is this goodness of this essence, and then there's how you carry out your passion and affections, which is the pathos.
Well, Nick. Oh, I gotta move my microphone. Boomer moment there. I suggest you start at the top. And then we've already said where you're going. And let's develop it to get to that explanation at the end.
Okay. Concepts versus consensus. So concept presumes a certain logos, a certain logic, a certain reality, which is objectively general, depending on who you talk to, but historically something that is logically and reality based, versus consensus, which is the actually, I believe that's a logical fallacy. Consensus is not necessarily bad, but it can be a logical fallacy of appeal to majority or tradition.
Well,
Not
okay.
that tradition or majority is always wrong, but
So here's how I see concept versus consensus. A concept is something that I can extract from the world around me, right? Without just by observation. But with consensus, I could say,
or deduction.
Yeah, yes, or deduction. But using consensus, I can say that the sky is black. I can say, because we all agree that that color is black now, right? That's consensus.
Or it could be the empirical consensus, which cannot.
Well,
What happens if it's an empirical consensus? Well, A, how do you know it's a consensus? And B, how do you make that deduction? What's essentially is the same as A, but in a different word, right?
Well, okay.
I can derive a concept independently of anybody else, and I can test it. Consensus, I have to talk to a lot of people and find out what a lot of people are thinking before I know what the consensus is, before I can make up my mind as to what is the truth.
Right. So concept is natural. Consensus is always and everywhere human derived. Consensus makes human opinion the source of truth.
I'll go further. Based on empiricism, right? People evaluating data. Okay, there's data points. That's empirical consensus. Even though it may be an objective data point, but making deductions from the data could be consensus, or it could be a concept. But how do you know the difference?
Well, if you wait for a lot of people to evaluate the data and tell you what it means, and then you go with the majority of what people think it means, you're doing consensus.
Yeah.
Basically reading a lot of books on data gives you consensus. Ooh.
It can. Now, you can run into selection bias problems even in that, because people who write books tend to come from certain segments of the population. We see this with the academics all the time. So just the problem with consensus, I think, is at the end of the day, it assumes that the human matters more than the reality. So, going back to my calling the sky black example, the color of the sky never actually changes. We just decided to rename the color blue to black, right? That was a human consensus. It doesn't change the fact that there is still a color that we, in the present day, call blue, and tomorrow we decide to call black. So consensus.
What if you're colorblind?
If you're colorblind, then I'll pick it. If you're then okay, what shade of gray are we talking about? Okay.
Oh, there we go. Good. I'm glad we went there.
Well, because at
Nice.
the end of the day, all you're doing is trying to come up with some sort of mutually agreed upon definition for the words that we're using to describe. Blue or black doesn't matter. It's the color of the
What
sky.
about green or
Isn't it changed?
brown? What about green or brown?
Same. It doesn't matter which colors you pick. It really doesn't, because you swap.
Well, because colorblind people, they don't understand the difference between green and brown.
Well, sure. And what happens to those people? This is my favorite thought experiment to do. Is it applies? I apply it to sociopaths, but it's this thought experiment. You're a colorblind person. I hold up a color. I hold up green. All you see is gray. Okay. And then I hold it up and you go, oh, and I tell you, oh, this is what green is. So you go, oh, green means gray. What we would call gray. Okay.
So
then
this is okay. Okay, keep going. I got a point afterwards, but
okay.
You keep going.
And then you hold up gray and you say this is gray, and it's still gray. And they say, well, what are you talking about? You just told me that was green. You're literally trying to gaslight me. That is what it looks like to colorblind people. Is like you're trying to gaslight them.
Okay, so this also ties into psychological normalcy. Well, this is the problem of the inductivist or empiricist is that everything that's observable, well, nobody can observe everything exactly the same. Yet there are actual deviations from normalcy. But what is normalcy based on pure empiricist, irregular view of reality? There are diseases. There are blindnesses among mankind, which makes the observation of death regular. But does anybody actually object to the point of what is actually normal and what is actually deviations from normalcy? So now you have to deal with the problem of universals, in particular, the universal experience or universal nature of mankind versus its particular experiences.
This reminds me of a quote from an old TV show that I used to watch. The truth is a three-edged sword, your side, my side, and the truth.
Exactly.
The truth, there is an objective reality. But if I were to hold up an apple, for example, in between Nick and I, we would both have a different objective view of the same apple. And yet we can still agree that I'm holding up an apple. So the simple existence of a different perspective does not change the concept of an apple. It only changes your view of the apple.
Well, let me bring this back to red pill discussion. So, is marriage the way we practice it today? Is it a concept? Or is it a consensus? Is a definition of marriage based on a concept or a consensus?
It's a natural, I would say it's a natural law understanding, and it has a greater theological understanding given the special revelation of God with Christ and the church. However, what we have today is actually not consensus. It is the arbitrary definition by those who have the Nietzschean, if you understand Nietzschean philosophy, because they have the power, they think they can actually define what marriage is, contrary to the concept, contrary to natural law, and in it, contrary to supernatural revelation.
So, Nick.
But okay, go ahead.
Okay, so what Nick, I think, is describing here is this concept of the tyranny of the majority is a form of consensus. It's not just the majority agrees, the majority then turns around and imposes its view, its consensus on everyone else.
A certain majority, but it's not the overall majority. It's a majority of a certain period of time, contrary to all of time.
Oh, okay, but can I push back on that a little bit, Nick?
Absolutely.
Because you said it's not the majority, but how much
it is
time?
a majority of them, but is a certain majority. It's a particular majority.
Well, right, because I'm thinking about how much time you and I have spent collectively on Twitter and this channel with Steve, basically railing against the fact that these people have taken over the church with their heretical ideas about what marriage relationships should look like. I mean, how many dozens of hours have we spilled on that topic? And look, the entirety of the church, with maybe a handful of physical exceptions, has by and large bought into this consensus view of marriage,
which in greater or lesser degree is an egalitarian view of marriage.
Correct.
I would say
Which
that is the
called
consensus.
vagrant concubinage.
Right.
Well, yes, it is.
Vagrant concubinage.
but it's not just a majority, it is the overwhelming majority, to the point where people like the three of us get up and we say things and are branded heretical radicals for it. And the three of us are going, but the Bible says, and then we get this, well, that's just because you don't understand the Bible, like these great doctrinaire leaders who have dedicated their entire lives to reading the Bible. It's like, yeah, but I can read English, motherfucker.
I can read English.
So
I can read Augustine.
what you're saying?
I can read Aquinas. I can read the Westminster Standards. I can read William Gooch. I can read Robert Louis Dabney, who called this shit out beforehand, by the way.
Anyways. So those that apply concepts and said, no, this is what it means, lose. They lose to the populace who is working on consensus. And that includes the leaders. That includes pretty much all the women, most of the men, where a woman says, oh, he's a bad man. And everybody, the consensus is,
hey,
he's a bad man.
So what if I am, Steve? Hey, Steve, so what if I am?
Well,
a bad man.
You know what? I guess that makes you the black spy.
And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the consensus calling me a bad man because I don't give a fuck what the consensus says.
Well, the interesting thing about concepts people, as Steve is describing them, is that they almost uniquely have a healthy relationship with the concept of, I mentioned the truth is a three-edged sword. I'm not saying that they are the truth or that they know the truth, but they have the concepts people have a healthy relationship with the idea that I may never know the full truth, but these concepts can help me get there. They can keep me grounded so that I don't get too far away from this truth.
That sounds like an agnostic still somehow clinging on to natural law. Or you could say this sounds like in another way, like Plutarch had this series, over a year ago, I think. It was about the new sophists versus the philosophers.
Yes.
Socrates, or you could think Socrates versus the
right.
The sophists would appeal would appeal to consensus, and Socrates
Mhm.
was all about, no, what is the actual truth? Thought consensus, what is the truth? Behind all of this, what is the objective reality?
Can I just interject something else here that I'm thinking of now? Consensus is a luxury belief. Consensus is something that if you have the time and the energy and the resources, you can come to one. Think about how Steve was describing, oh, well, I have to go talk to all these different people to reach a consensus. That's bloody expensive.
But it even changes over time.
Of course. But concepts don't change. The concept of an apple doesn't change. The concept of blue doesn't change. And so we don't have to spend all this energy discovering what blue is. You point to the sky and you say blue. And that's the end of it. And so
Dang. Even the H word of Germany can understand that the concept is blue, that the concept of the sky is blue. But
that, I guess,
dang,
that
I
just
guess the
makes
clock
us
is right, twice a day.
right. I guess that just makes us evil F word people, because we can.
But I don't think Stalin would disagree either, or Mao. I mean, come on.
No, they wouldn't. But the corollary of that is, as access to resources, energy, whatever, decreases, the ability to reach a consensus decreases. And oh my goodness, does that not feel like the last 20 years?
Well, consensus is a luxury because the risk of being wrong is trivial during these luxury times. When times are dire and you're wrong because you went with the consensus and it means you die, well, that was an expensive choice.
Hey, if everybody's jumping off a cliff, will you do it too?
In a consensus society, the answer is yes, by the way.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
I didn't take a certain vax. First and right away, I had the natural immunity of what I understand was the original strain in 2020. And B, most of the solutions were experimental, even though are consensus driven, didn't have the consensus of empiricism for me to make a rational decision.
That's actually a good example. And I came to roughly the same conclusion. I looked at it and I said, look, right, every drug is required by law to go through 12 to 15 years of trials. They're doing 12 to 15 weeks. They have no clue what the long-term consequences of this will be. And it turns out they didn't. And now we are dealing with the consequences of this. And we will be dealing with the consequences of this for many decades to come.
And I give you not, both the right and left of my family were all telling me, oh, we're so scared for you. We know you've already had it, but you need to take this jab. And how many times have I had that certain disease? 0 after them. And how many times do they keep being sick themselves over and over again? Now that's just my experience. Can I extrapolate that out? No, but that's just my experience. So, anyways.
Well, you know what? My thought process was exactly the same. I had some strange, long-lasting cold about 2 weeks before the whole thing became known. It was the strangest thing. It wasn't typically debilitating, but it was long-lasting and strange. And then, the whole hype. And then, we're going to roll out this experimental bullshit. You're going around what the normal protocol is, calling it experimental, and there's all this propaganda going around. How about screw you, fuck you? I don't believe this bullshit. I'll take my chances because I know there's always unintended consequences that were not known at the. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it. I'll wait till you other people. You go ahead. You jump off that cliff. Let's see if you're doing well. A year down the road after you jumped off the cliff. Yeah, maybe if it's good, yeah, then there's plenty of time. If I die before then, hey, problem solved.
Note how each of us arrived independently. We did not know, the three of us did not know each other in 2020. We many years before we would meet. But yet each of us independently used the same concepts to arrive at the same conclusion in direct defiance of the consensus.
And I was a pastor, okay, and I was the vice president of the local ministerial association, later the president, and everybody's coming to me like, what should I do? I'm afraid for my job. And I said, I'll offer you letters. And I wrote a few letters, but most of them went to other guys that were less dogmatic, less in your face, because I was telling these hospitals and associations, like, you're gonna answer to God for forcing these people to take something that's not medically proven. Okay. And another thing, I had a senator, he was at the time a senator in my congregation. He later betrayed me, white knighted, and gave my children, when he was later a representative, my children and my ex-wife letters of standing without my, while I was a minister in good standing in the Orthodox Presbyterian Church, letters of standing to transfer to church without my knowledge. Okay, so, and yet he was the same guy, and I was like, why are you? In session meetings, I said, I'd ask him, like, what are you doing? What are you doing about this situation in our community where these people are being forced to take these untested jabs, right? He's like, well, I took one. It came out later that he took the Johnson & Johnson jab, and within 6 months he was diagnosed with was it Bell's palsy?
Bell's palsy,
Yeah.
A facial muscle spasm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying, guys.
Okay, so have we beat concepts versus consensus to death here?
Yeah.
I think so.
Because we were also hammering away on principles versus values earlier in the chat today.
Yeah. Well, I think go to that one.
Well, click on that so we can see it, not your slideshow.
Oh, isn't it up there?
He
wants it bigger.
Bigger.
Oh. Okay, I changed views. Gotta go to
There.
Oh,
Just down.
Yeah, you have to run through it again.
There we go. Prince. So what are we talking about now, Steve?
Principles versus values. You're leading the show, Nick.
This is a Steve. This is a Steve.
No, this is my devious method of getting out of the leadership role.
I knew
it. No, but this is Steve has been, or Seven Man's been harping on for like over a year. I think it's been over a year. Principles versus values. Okay, so Steve, family what?
Oh, that's family values. And that's determined by the consensus of all the good Christian people about what you should do. And they always talk about the values. Oh, yes, we value the family. We value women. We do this and that. And
Blah, blah,
it's
blah.
and then when it comes down to it, oh, divorce. Well, we have to protect the women. Let's not talk about that. Do they
No.
ever go back and realize how principles affect their values? Are their values derived from principles? Or are the values derived from consensus?
So,
Well, go ahead, Nick.
Before Steve challenged me on this, I always equated the values as stemming from principles. But Steve showed me that no. They have these values. It's this lazy way of being undogmatic. It's this lazy way of appealing to the consensus values, the relativism, the subjective values of a populace versus something based on objective reality, the concepts, principles, etc.
Okay, Nick and Steve. Well, Steve might have wandered off. Boomer over there. How could you derive a value system from principles, though? Because
10 Commandments.
no. Okay. Well, I ask because yes, value systems can be derived from consensus. That we see that all the time. But do they have to be derived from consensus? Is the question.
No, they don't.
Okay, so
They don't. But in present reality, I see that more the case.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we'll
is.
get to that. That's a good question. We're going to get to that exact issue with the next point.
No shit.
Well,
okay.
Well, okay. So one of the things that I've been talking about mostly in the private chat, because I don't think there's a show in there yet. But the thing I've been talking about is this idea that we have so many value systems that people, they don't know which ones to follow. And the church used to be a place where the principles of Christianity was packaged up into a system of values that was easy to digest by people who do not have the time or intellect to sit down and debate the finer points of what this piece of scripture means to theology and how it all impacts each other. But instead, you could come up with a value system of, well, we don't murder other people, and people who murder people are evil. Specifically, it's that people who murder are evil is a value system. There's a principle behind that about why murdering people is bad. But if you sit there and try to parse that out, in my experience, you're mostly just going to confuse people.
Well, right. The principle is, we're made in the image and likeness of God, and every life is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
The value is don't kill somebody. And that becomes the rule. That becomes the value. That becomes the application of the principle. Now, I'm probably using that analogy wrong. So just
actually, you see that in the charge to Noah after the flood.
Okay.
That's the idea of you shed man's blood, therefore his blood shall also be shed.
I was going to say
So
that predates the Ten Commandments, even, doesn't it?
I would say the Ten Commandments were in existence at creation.
Oh,
but sometimes the Word of God is more explicit at times than others. Yeah.
So you're saying there's a concept here that existed throughout creation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, let me point out a modern value and how I think it was developed. In our modern world, most people think tolerance is a value that we should practice. Tolerance? Really? Ooh, where does that come from? It's a value. Everybody should be tolerant. You should be tolerant. Well, there's a Christian concept of love, which is also known as charity. So, if you're practicing charity,
patience or forbearance also is another word.
Okay, but if you're practicing charity, that means you shouldn't judge someone else. You should be accepting. And therefore, if you're loving and not judging, you need to be tolerant. And that's my value. Is that
No,
tolerance?
No. To be loving or tolerant is exemplifying a principle or value or law itself. Can we just call that the 11th commandment?
Don't hurt feelings?
Yeah.
And by the way, this commandment supersedes all 10 before it. I mean, look at
the OPC and feminism. There you go. How they dealt with my friend Michael Spengler. Fuck you guys. You practice the 11th commandment and the idea of your fucking bureaucracy of consensus. Fuck you. Okay, that's probably more than I should have done, but yeah.
Probably.
It needed to be said.
Nick, you're not practicing the value of tolerance.
Fuck you.
I think Nick gave up on the value of tolerance many, many moons ago.
Yeah, when my family was fucking kidnapped from me and they funded the bitch to fucking take my kids 1,000 miles away, then they said, oh, you're just not being winsome and tolerant enough. How about fuck you fucking bureaucratic motherfuckers? Fuck you, motherfuckers. Fuck you to hell. Where's my family?
You know, it sounds sometimes like we're winding him up, but the reality is, guys, this is always there under the surface with Nick.
It is.
Absolutely.
Hey, it's the most important. No, let me be serious here. Family it's a man's purpose. It's what he was created for. It is so close to his essence that when it's taken away, he never forgets. It's always right there. And you know what? For a married man living with his family, that's why he gets up every morning and goes to work. That's why, he will sacrifice. That is why he will drive an old piece of shit car and buy a new car for his wife, or newer, so she can carry the kids around. Because the family is more important than his comfort and anything else. And nobody realizes it. So you take that away from a man and you think it's not right under the surface. You think he's not going to be angry about that?
He should.
I know you're throwing me under the bus here. What about yourself? At least I get to visit my kids when I can.
Oh, you're talking about me?
You're fucked more than I am. I'm sorry.
Hey, I haven't talked to my 2 daughters for close to 20 years. I've reached out to them. No, they bought into the whole narrative. Okay, I've gotten used to it. It's gone on so long. I don't know. The anger's gone. I'm just kind of sorrow. It's just, sorrow.
Steve.
And now at this point, they are culpable for their decisions because they're adults. You know what? If they had some inkling in wanting to know the truth, they could go find it. But no, they would rather go with the consensus and believe what they're told to believe than really seek the truth, which says quite a bit about their character. Of course, they're two daughters. Women go with the consensus most all the time. So, you know what? I'm not going to condemn them. It is what it is.
Steve, you said something interesting there, and it was actually a really good choice of words. And I don't think you were lying. I said, you said, I got used to it. And when you go through a loss event where you lose something that really mattered to you, you don't get over it. You might be able to work past it, particularly if you have an outlet like Nick does down there, where he can scream into a microphone. But
absolutely,
the best you can really hope for is to get used to that, the new state of affairs. It doesn't change or make what happened any better.
That might make it more dangerous because you normalize wickedness.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Steve did that at all.
Right.
I'm not saying Steve is normalizing at all, but in his experience, it's normalized.
Well, think of how many men
not principally normalizing in his heart, but the experience is normalized, which is fucked up.
Well, but think about how many men have had,
and he knows it's
normalized it. Well, right. Yeah. But think about how many men who have had to normalize it.
Yeah.
Because it's either that or you
millions.
Die.
Fucking millions, man. Fucking millions.
These men have a right to their anger is righteous.
Absolutely. It's righteous anger. You fight it as much as you can until, you're out of money. And then you say, it's not going to change. And fighting it will actually make things worse for them. So I have to let it go. And then what are you going to do with it? Are you going to hold on to the bitterness? Are you going to hate? No. You know what? Everybody has to answer for their actions someday. So you make the best of it. But what makes it easier, and I think it's in some ways easier now, or for Nick, because when I was going through it, there wasn't a lot of men talking about it. You couldn't talk to anybody about what was going on because they'd pretty much take the opposite side. No one was willing to hear you out and understand you. And if they did, they were just placating to you. They didn't. Now there's a whole community of men out there who say, yeah, that's the way it is. Now, Terrence Popp, the Redonkulus Regiment, why has he saved 565 men from suicide? Because they listen to him and he talks about the reality of it. And they can reach out to him and they can talk about it. And they know they're not alone. And they know, hey, other men have gone through this. Yes, your pain is real. Yes, this shit happens. Yes, it's unfair. Yeah, I know how much you're suffering. I know how much you're hurting over this. Just knowing that someone else has gone through it helps men a lot. Because men, we're all kind of lonely.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was reading Nick's comment in the background there about his technical issues. So if Nick drops off, it's not him, it's his technology failing. So have we done principles versus values sufficiently, Steve?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. The next one. Morals versus mores. And mores might need a definition for the audience here because it's kind of an older term that we don't use much anymore.
You want to bring it up so I don't have to mess up my screen here?
Okay, give me a second.
I've also heard it called mores.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with the tab I just opened.
Now, I think this is an important one
I'll
to talk about.
call mores customs. Mores are customs or human law, in my understanding. They're not necessary. Oh shit! There goes my. My computer's about to die. Sorry.
We'll see Nick whenever he gets it sorted out.
Shit,
So
one screen go out.
Oh, silliness. Okay. So here is the American Heritage Dictionary of English Language, 5th edition definition of mores. The accepted traditional customs and usages of a particular social group, moral attitudes, manners, ways, customs, habits, moral customs, conformity to which is more or less obligatory, customary law. These are all actually great definitions, but are they morals? Aha.
I'll for my Reformed and Presbyterian followers, you can refer this back to Girolamo Zanchi in his book on laws. So he makes these distinctions.
Well, this was an important thing, a concept that made a lot of things clear in my mind. Because growing up, everybody talked about values. And we're supposed to have these values. And then I realized, whoa, wait a minute. Principles are more important than values. So then I could define, principles, and a derivative is values. Then the concept of morals. Morals are based on principles. Mores, or mores, are based on values. So, for instance, you can have a Christian, U.S. Christian civilization. We have certain mores here, behaviors, customs. You go to Europe or Russia or Greece, they have different Christian mores there, different Christian behaviors. And they abide by those there. I mean, there's just different customs. You know, the way we dress here, the way women dress, wouldn't cut it in those places. Hey, you know what? The mores have changed even in the U.S. in the last 50, 60 years. Now you can go to church. We all know how women dress in church, but let's talk about the men. To go to church wearing blue jeans, ripped blue jeans, and a t-shirt? Are you kidding me? That wouldn't cut it 50 years ago. No, you put on, there's this thing called the Sunday best. Your best clothes. That's what you wore to church. You know, you dressed up, even if you were a poor man. you had a suit, a tie, or, at least some clean bib overalls. But now anything goes.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the bib overalls because that was my grandpa. He's also Catholic, and he had his Sunday best, and they were his cleanest bib overalls, and yeah, it was. I mean, but that's just who he was, and everyone in the church knew it. I went to his church a few times with him when I visited. So, to my mind, this goes back to the distinction between concepts and consensus. Almost 1-to-1. A moral is a moral is something that you would think is extractable from the world around us, right? I don't need other people to tell me what morals are. Now, it turns out that that's probably not entirely true, because humans are difficult beasts, and some of what we call morals may not actually be moral. But what I find interesting is that if you look at something like, to use an extreme example, murder, most humans will recoil against that. But also, if you look at something as benign, quote unquote, as, say, narcissistic gaslighting, most humans also recoil against that. And in both cases, you are reacting to something that, even if you couldn't explain why, you just innately understand that there is something wrong with that person who is willing to do that to somebody else. I think that's it's the best I can do for how do you elucidate a moral system on your own. But and I've talked with intelligent people about this, and they are, particularly the atheists, are really struggling with how do we, because, and a lot of them will say, well, I got there. I'm talking about people, 130, 140, 150 IQ. They're like, well, I got there and I understand it, but why can't these people over here, usually of lesser intelligence, why can't they figure it out? And it's ironic because they're actually coming back to, maybe Christianity was a load-bearing element of society in that, and so what I'm saying is actually coming from some atheists now. They still have to get over well, I'm good enough to see the difference on some of these things, but they're starting to go, there was value in what organized religion did in setting up the mores of society, the traditions, the moral attitudes, the habits. There was value there.
Particularly,
go ahead.
Particularly Richard Dawkins comes into mind, and in the background of Christopher Hitchens, saying, what do you mean you want to get rid of them? And he's like, I don't know what it is, but I wouldn't get rid of all Christians. And now Dawkins is like, oh shit, with all this Islamic invasion of the UK, he's like, maybe this Christianity, he doesn't agree theologically, but on the mores that came from the morals of Christianity, he's like, shit. There's something to it.
This way, in a more frank way than those guys will. They'll say, oh, Christianity is good and necessary for civilization, for the structure of civilization, even though it's not really true. So, because it provides guidance and values for people to abide by, some controls over civilization where people can unite and just focus on that, because society doesn't work if everyone is trying to derive behavior based on principles. It's kind of the
Because
same
so
way in
few can.
mathematics, because you don't need to prove through a theorem how mathematics works. You just need to apply it because, yep, other people smarter than you said, yeah, they went through 57 steps to prove 2 plus 2 equals 4. So now you can just do it, and you can just know you're going to be right. Okay, that's an absurd example, but you know what I mean.
Well, but that is true in many respects. You know, you talk about theoretical astrophysics, and there's just so few people who have the math mind to do that at that level. But I can look at it and say, okay, I'll understand the theoretical astrophysics behind this, but black holes were predicted via mathematics 80 years before we were able, 90 years before we were able to actually catch a picture of a black hole. We actually did in 2020 catch a real picture of a black hole. But you couldn't prove the existence of those things. The math said they had to be there, and it turns out that the math was later proven correct. Okay, but this is, and I think that's what we're seeing now with like the Dawkins and Hitchens thing, is they're going, oh shit. Now we're starting to see the reality of what these moral systems, is how I'll phrase it, were actually trying to achieve, and the value they had. Because not only are very few people capable of elucidating these things in such a way that is pro-socially useful, most people, there goes Nick, most people have no particular interest in even trying to elucidate these things. And so they're just going to go with that, whichever one feels good at the time.
Yeah, well, they just can't do it. It's not that they have no desire to do it. They just lack the ability to do it.
So what do? You come up with a system of morals and say, guys, just do this. It works. And when people do it, it works.
Morals are things that just exist.
Yes.
Morals never change. Mores change. Principles never change. I mean, we could go into a debate there and, here's a case. I don't care. Principles in general never change. Morals or values are constantly changing with society. Morals don't change because they're based on the Bible, and the Bible doesn't change. All you Catholics would agree with that. All you Protestants, sola scriptura people, does the Bible change? No. If the Bible doesn't change and it's all based on scripture, do morals ever change? No, they don't.
Well, Steve, here's one. Did the Bible create the morals, or did the Bible specify pre-existing morals?
Well, obviously, it specified pre-existing morals, because in the beginning was the Logos.
Aha. Hey. So what you're actually saying is that the Bible, and I think this is where a lot of atheists get the Bible wrong, is because the atheists try to say the Bible tells me what to do. Okay. The moral system existed before the Bible was written. Very clearly so. Okay. The Bible is a codification of, here's what the morals are. Here are the best practices that you should follow to achieve those moral ends. Right. The Bible has a lot of different, 5,000 years of history, or whatever it is. We don't actually know how long it is, but it's many thousands of years of history.
Yeah.
And it's stories. A large part of the Bible is stories explaining here's a moral, and then here's this whole story about why this moral matters, and here's the system you can follow so that you too can avoid this story or achieve this story, depending on which story we're talking about, right?
Well, you could also say that the whole Bible is an explaining or a story of the development in understanding of the morals and principles that have always existed in different ways, because there were practices, well, polygamy and things like that we say, well, that's immoral. Well, yet it was practiced. Well, that was kind of on a step to the maturity, somewhat spiritual maturity of the human race. Things were learned over those 5,000 years. And in the New Testament, they were kind of explained what was veiled in the Old Testament.
Yeah, the polygamy one is especially interesting because what you'll get right now is a bunch of men who saying, well, but polygamy was practiced back in the days of the Bible, so therefore it's biblical. Well, if you actually go read, even as far back, I think Deuteronomy actually even talks about this, although without Nick, I can't have him crack open his vast knowledge of the Bible and confirm or deny. But
yeah,
the Bible does, there's a number of things in the Bible as a corollary, divorce, where God basically says, I give this to you because without it, you guys will tear each other apart. Not because it's a good thing, but because, and because in the cases where it's granted, it is actually justified. So it's like, if I don't give you this if I don't give you this, you guys are just going to tear each other apart. So I'll let you have it, but that does not mean that I like it. That's divorce.
Right. Yep.
Polygamy, I think, is much the same way, because when you look particularly at the early history of the Bible and the era that it's covering, male death would have been just an everyday occurrence. Oh, my uncle died yesterday. Oh, my dad died today. Yeah. Okay. There you go, Andrew. Yeah. Matt 1908. Yes. And so I think that, and when you look at the polygamy that is defined and I do believe this is Deuteronomy, which is Old Testament, guys, the law is very clear that it is, okay, your brother died. He was married. Somebody needs to take care of his wife. Okay. You take care of his wife so that his legacy may continue on. This was not an excuse to, have bacchanalia with as many women as possible. This was a duty to take care of your family. How far off base am I, Nick? Well,
not from what I've heard. Yeah, you have a duty to take care of your family. Yeah, somebody dies. Yeah, you take care of them. It was especially so with the firstborn, which has been eviscerated. Steve has done this many times. It's been eviscerated under the democracy. But yeah, he didn't always have the luxury of going off. He had the duty of inheriting the land and taking care of the widowed mother if the father passed on before her.
Uh-oh, you might have lost Nick again.
Yeah.
But so, this is.
I'm here.
Okay.
Off and on.
Okay. But the point being here is that just because the Bible said to do something, said that here's a circumstance where you can do something and you should do this thing, it does not mean that it is licensed to then go on and just do whatever the hell you want with it. So I think that's kind of long form what Steve was trying to get to is that we have now gotten to a place as a society, as a technological species, where we don't even need, where the benefits of monogamy far outweigh any benefit you might derive from polygamy. For example, polygamy, multiple men or multiple women, one man. Well, what does that mean for all the men who not dying? Right. Men died all the time back in the Stone Ages. Okay, fine. You needed to do something about that. Men aren't dying all the time anymore. And so it creates...
It's a dumb idea. We don't want to reorder our society into that kind of structure.
Well, you're taking a solution for a time and then trying to apply it when the solution is not necessary. Because, okay, look, you have this problem. You have women who need protection and most of the men are dead. What do? Well, multiple women per man. It's kind of like the thing you can do.
Right.
We no longer live in that time.
We have the social welfare system to take care of those women. So let's move on to leading versus cooperating.
Okay. Leadership.
I'll be right back. You start this.
Okay.
I don't like leading. I mean, I think it's fine. I think a better term is ruling. But I think that's what he's trying to get to in the next point as well.
Well, because I was going to immediately, Nick, I was immediately going to take this and say, oh, he's talking about the natural hierarchy, father, bride, children, right? And the father is the head, the ruler, the leader. You could call it headship if you want. And this is yet another thing that we can see in the natural order, and not even just the human natural order, but in all of creation, you see these hierarchies. I'd also call it a very masculine.
There's more structured and less structured hierarchy. So let's just say squad leader.
Okay.
There's still an aspect where everybody looks up to him as if he has some real authority, even though it is actual real authority, but it's it's formal yet informal at the same time. But yet, if shit goes wrong in the squad, who in the hierarchy is looking to that guy?
Well, the people underneath him. And the thing I think,
drill sergeant, think Full Metal Jacket. Look, this dumb person in your squad is not pulling his freaking weight. So who's going to get called for that? The whole squad, or perhaps the squad leader?
Right. Well, you're talking about the responsibility of leadership, right? And so a lot of people say, oh, but the squad leader has very limited responsibility. Yeah, and they also have very limited purview over the men. There's a general who's got a big map and he's pushing, all these different squads around, right? But even so, in that scenario, the squad leader still has a job and a duty to his men underneath him to get them in the fight, to utilize them as effectively as possible to achieve the directives from above. Corporate life is organized the same way, although with less immediate and permanent consequences. And of course, the Bible's ordered the same way. Is a man, the feminists, they love to say that, men aren't accountable to anybody. Well, in a de-Christianized society that is still trying to follow some sort of natural order, they are actually correct, because the feminists have taken away the Godhead, and by doing so, they have taken away any check on a man's power, and they recognize that that's what they've done. But their answer wasn't to say, oh, we need to bring the Godhead back. The answer was, no, we need to make, men subservient to women. And now we need to
No, it's
invert the natural.
Leviathan.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Leviathan. It's the state
I'm
has
gonna.
all absolute control over the marital relationship, not the man. So therefore, the woman, because she's supposedly ideally they're both responsible, but what's actually ended up happening. No, the man is responsible supposedly, but he has no authority. And actually, the woman has all the authority and power to screw him over and use the Leviathan of the state. I'm thinking Thomas Hobbes and positive law to screw over the natural law authority, or natural law guardian over the family.
That's how it works. Because women are more violent than men.
Yes.
That
Yeah, fuck
sounds
you,
absurd.
state of Louisiana, for that bullshit too. Fuck you.
Okay, men
Fuck you and your false statistics.
have physical force, and they have to be careful in how they use it. So potentially more physically violent, but they rarely use that. Women are more violent because they use subversive violence. Basically, get somebody else to be the bad guy, to throw him in jail, to impose rules on him, court orders, throw him in jail, whatever. They are nasty and vindictive and manipulative, and it's really subversive violence. Oh, hell hath no fury.
Steve, what you're saying is that women can only function in a society where cooperation is enforced. That's the women can only lead in a society.
So let me take this on a little aside here. Okay, where cooperation is enforced. Okay, save that thought. Okay, let's do an experiment. Let's take 8 men and 8 women and put them on 2 separate desert islands and say, okay, here you are, survive. Now, when they get there, there is no law, no order, there's no nothing. So they can choose, the men can choose, are we going to govern our island by committee and cooperation? Or are we going to get a leader and use hierarchy? And the women can decide the same thing.
Oh, so you're talking about there's two.
What do you think? How do you think this is going to go?
There's 2 pressing examples, and I'll go there. These are the least likely places you would think where a natural hierarchy, natural leading would of men rule would crop up, but it shows the nature of male leadership, male hierarchy. Was it Chaz?
Yeah.
Was one of them. And then Occupy Wall Street was another, where the women reverted to being more domesticated, cooking meals, while the men kind of were out there doing the work and guarding the walls.
Doing the defense and aggression, the physical stuff. Even doing the physical, raising the food, farming. That was women's work, actually, in Chaz. Wasn't it, Plutarch?
The Chaz one was particularly hysterical because they had no idea what to do or how to do it. And so they're sitting here trying to plant tomatoes and corn They had torn up a football field of highly compact dirt, and they did this all in September.
Oh.
It's too late for anything at that point.
But they were working together. They were cooperating. It was committee. Yeah. Didn't work so well because the leadership and the knowledge and telling them what to do.
Well,
Wasn't
these
there.
are a bunch
and
of
wasn't that the point where, I said, keep this in mind? What did you say? The cooperation among women needs to be enforced?
yes. So the whole Chaz thing was it was actually a microcosm in everything we're talking about here, because there was a gang lord who came in and handed out a bunch of guns and then eventually misusing them. A couple people got shot. Somebody tried to come in and impose order, and part of the big breakdown was because the communists, and they were avowed communists, could not decide who should lead. They had gotten to the point where they realized that they needed somebody to lead them, but the whole thing broke down because eventually the humans just started walking away because they couldn't survive there anymore. Literally, there was no food. Now, there was they had a bunch of community organizers bringing them stuff, but it was, and then of course, it started to get cold. Right, the weather wasn't as good as it was when I forget the exact timeline, but they started sometime in summer, and it all ends, I think it's end of September or October sometime. And Seattle is, well, it's really actually same latitude as Minneapolis. So it doesn't it doesn't stay warm all year like it does in Texas. So these things just kept happening that broke down because they were focused, because they were trying to do the communism thing, and it just kept not working.
I think that's because they didn't try it the right way.
Oh, they just didn't do communism hard enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, they certainly gave it the old college try, and they had some scholars in there on who studied all of the mistakes that communism made, and these people were of course trying to tell the other people, no, don't do that. And then those people spoke, well, but you can't tell me what to do. I am your equal, and the whole thing.
You know what? Isn't this just describing hierarchy versus committee? Committee
actually
is communism. Everything is done by committee.
Hey,
but really, in order to survive, you need a hierarchy.
Your committees are full of shit. Your committees are full of shit, Presbyterians. You're just trying to eschew responsibility and authority onto a bunch of dumbasses that never come up with anything that has any authority.
Okay,
committees
Steve.
are full of shit and worthless.
Steve, I'm saying that the OPCA is communist? Is that what you're telling me, Nick?
It goes down. Actually, it's down to the Latinx point is democracy. We need to have a committee on this to figure out a study committee, which basically just pushes everything to the left, because in essence, a committee does everything to the left because they're fucking leftist, communist, Marxist pieces of shit.
Okay. Nick, just stop right there. Everything a committee does is to the left. Why? Because committees are based on consensus and cooperation. And you can't achieve consensus without getting enough people enough people to agree. Well, that means that you're going to have to agree with you're going to have to bring people on board who you might be sitting over there going, your theology is kind of sus, but I need you, so I will let you have it. Right. That's how committees work.
Ideally, no, but practically speaking, for the last 150 years, it's pretty much been that.
Right. So, I think committees always devolve into that. I think that's what I'm really trying to say.
Let's move on to the next one: monarchy versus democracy.
Oh, this is a favorite one of Steve's here.
Nick's
Yeah, I
too.
like monarchy better. Yep, I actually prefer monarchy. I know Dabney does not, but he also lived in an age where they actually had, like, I would call them landed gentry. But they called it a republic, you know. But
Well,
Well, the
they were
U.S. was not set up as a democracy. It was set up as a democratic
exactly.
republic.
It was
And
I would call it
then
a
we kind of
broader
lost the
monarchy,
plot
a
there right
broader
around World
nobility
War One.
is
What?
done. It in World War One, it was done for Europe.
yeah,
Because
for
World
Europe,
War
yeah.
One was fought to make the world safe for democracy. You could not have had that motto if you really weren't abandoning the republic model and replacing in people's minds the more or the value of democracy, which then, oh, yes, all men are created equal. Women get the right to vote. Yes, everybody gets a say. Yes, it's governance by committee. Yeah, that's
You'll never
monarchy.
get what
No,
needs
you,
to be
you won't get there
done.
from monarchy, but you will get there if you go halfway.
Okay, the democracy will never get unless you live in like a weird ass period of time where your democracy is a bunch of men that are invested in the system physically and economically. You might get shit done, but that's not really the case today. Monarchy is, I think, actually superior because these pieces of shit, these people that have voting power, they'll always be swayed by the latest shit and never have the balls to actually do what needs to be done for the good of society and the good of country. A monarch, contrary to what we have today, which is crony capitalism, which are a bunch of petty monarchs. These are actually the true people that run our country, are petty monarchs with crony capitalism that try to vie for interests every 4 years or 2 years with our representatives. Their will gets done. Versus a
You know
monarch
what,
has a
Nick?
landed interest in society to do what needs to be done because he actually
Nick,
has an interest in his own country.
Nick,
What?
but you've kind of
What?
circled back on yourself a bit here, though. Okay, if a landed gentry is a small group of people with a landed interest in the society, is that not the same thing as capitalists, with like these crony capitalists
No,
with a?
no,
Okay, okay.
no,
Why
no. They're
not? Why not?
globalists.
No, oh, no, 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 no.
Because
That's not what
they
I'm saying.
fuck they
That's not what I'm saying. Because the reason
okay.
I'm
What are
saying
you
this, Nick,
saying?
is because your argument opens up to, well, we should just allow these people to exist because they are the same thing. You can say, oh, well, they're different because of X, but the reality is that the shareholders, particularly the large shareholders of, say, Amazon, a company that everyone should know, right? Those people actually have a interest in the taxation regimes of the United States. They actually have an interest in how the infrastructure gets spent and built. You could argue that their interest is more narrowly tailored to the benefit of, say, Amazon. But in those cases, if you have a monarch, the globalist comes in and they said, and this happened in particularly the 1600s and 1700s in England. They would come in and tell the monarch, "Hey, I will fund this war if you go attack this person." And so it's not actually different with the monarchy. And I would even argue that you only have to corrupt one person to do it with a monarchy. So part of the reason that the founding fathers went the direction they did with the idea that it needs to be a group of people is that other people in the group would say, hey, wait a minute, you're off here trying to do this other thing. And, oh, hey, there's somebody whispering in your ear. And then they go, hey, but that's not in my interest. And then they can stand up to that. That's the theory. Obviously, that too can be corrupted. Any system can be corrupted. But my point is that that's what
Gabby would agree with that as well. Yeah.
Okay. But my point is that your argument is kind of looping back onto itself because you're attacking kind of the thing that you actually are saying is good.
Okay. Can I jump in here? Monarchy versus democracy. I'd like to look at that as a spectrum. Monarchy, one person. That's way over here. Democracy, consensus, all people, way over here. In between, closer to democracy, you had democratic republic. Correct. And then closer to monarchy, you got an oligarchy, which don't have to be globalists. They can be the dukes, the earls, the landed gentry, the high merchants with a lot of money, Medici's, people like that, Fuggers. Okay, they were oligarchs, and in Russia, it was always that way. You had the Tsar.
It still is.
And then you had
yes.
You had the boyars.
The boyars.
You had yes, and they were the oligarchy. And the monarch was always the control on the oligarchs. And the populace, if he was a good monarch, the populace supported the monarch, and they were pissed off on the oligarchs. So when he had the support of the people, he could ride herd on those. And there's always been this balance. But now in the U.S., well, in the world, basically, the oligarchs still exist.
Yes, they do.
Call them the globalists, call them the bankers,
crony capitalists.
Crony capitalists, the deep state, whatever you want to call them. They are there. And I'm sorry, the president doesn't have enough power to put them in their place on behalf of the people. And we kind of have this goofy thing. Who's really in charge and responsible? I don't know. I think the oligarchs are kind of running the show, and they're pulling the strings on the democracy, and us people don't really have much say. And I think under a monarchy, if we were as irritated as we will be in the near future, then the monarch would say, holy shit, I got the support of the people. I can actually do something, and I better do something. Otherwise, they got pitchforks.
I'm going to take a slightly different tack on this.
Okay.
Because look at how even today, corporations are kind of running scared from Trump. They're not doing everything that we on the right might wish that they were doing. Yeah. Jimmy Kimmel got reinstated. Okay. Right. But DEI is dead. Go to all the big tech guys that they either scrapped it or renamed it, and then they got called out for renaming it. And now they're sitting here going, oh shit, what do we do? And it turns out that it was a really cool cost center to cut as the economy goes down. It was free cost cutting for them. So there was drive for them to do it. But also this H-1B thing. There are corporations out there who are absolutely running scared over this. They are offering Trump all sorts of money and power. The interesting thing about Trump is that unlike any president that I can think of in recent times, he has fuck you money. He has enough money that he just looks at him and goes, fuck you, I'm good. Right. And so they don't, the typical thing that they would offer him, he's not interested in. And so the corporations are going, oh shit, we might actually have to pay $100,000 a year. That hasn't been decided yet. But it's going back and forth as Trump does exactly what Steve is describing, and looking at Trump is absolutely aware of what goes on Twitter. Maybe not directly himself. My understanding is Barron Trump is actually the one feeding him a lot of what's going in social media, but he's aware of it, and he's listening to people going, because Trump has another problem. If he doesn't do enough of what the right wants, particularly his MAGA base wants, he'll lose the midterms. So he's sitting here going, I'm going to have to do something on this H-1B thing. And now you've got Dick Durbin and Tom Cotton coming together to write basically a bipartisan placation legislation. That's how angry the people are. And all of government's now going, shit, we got to do something, or these people or I ain't gonna have a job next time this comes up. And so the interesting thing about democracy,
so the Democrats actually have to be for the fucking people again instead of everyone else.
Well, yes, but the interesting thing about this on the democracy side is
we forgot about that.
Steve was describing a continuum. Okay, the czar needs the support of the people to keep the oligarchy in check. Well, what is Trump doing right now? He has the support of the people to keep but here's the thing. Democracy itself is it was an attempt to codify that. I think it failed, but that was the idea behind it, right? Is that we can make it so expensive to buy votes that we have to listen to people to keep a check on the oligarchs.
Maybe that was a luxury.
No, I agree with you there. Yes.
Now we are back to, hey, this is the way the world works. The people don't have the power, but they murmur and talk. And if they get pissed off enough, they're going to take things into their own hands. And so whoever the ultimate leader is has to listen to the people, or you're going to have revolution. That
we'll
truth
probably get
has
anyway.
never changed.
No, it
and
hasn't.
The oligarchs are the people in the middle who have kind of been parasites and living off the people. They've been extracting labor and wealth from the people, and people don't understand that. But they're tolerated as long as you leave enough meat on the bone so the people can eat.
Well, not just leave enough meat on the bone, leave them alone to live their lives. That actually matters quite a bit to people, even in dire economic situations.
I'll put it to you this way: the peasants had more freedom under monarchs than the normal person has today. They had freedom to hunt. They had all these days off. They had public land where they could. I mean, they fought for this, to have public land to hunt, to fish, for the common good of society. They had days off, and they provided their wealth to the nobles,
whose duty was to protect
protection
that
of that. Exactly.
So
let's put it this way: I today have been enslaved by the state. I am a citizen. I've been enslaved to the state. I've had my children taken away. I don't have the ability to take all these days off. I don't have the ability. And then if I'm unable to pay, they'll take away my right to even hunt and fish on the common land. How about fuck you?
And they'll take away your right to drive a car too,
or have a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing about history. You know, people talk about the arc of history. It's not really an arc. It's really more of a sine wave. And we go back and forth between progressive, open, you know, luxury beliefs, for lack of a better term. But we go too far because we're humans and we always go too far in whatever it is we do. And then things start to get worse. And at first, we don't know why. But eventually, something will happen. And then another thing will happen. And then the people start to go, oh, that's why. We are in we are in the finding out stage right now. People are starting to find out why everything is kind of falling apart. And again, throughout history, you start to fall down. Strong men, dictators, tyrants, monarchs rise up during these periods. And in some cases, they do actually serve a function of clearing out the excesses of the oligarchy. And the oligarchy is absolutely in excess right now, to the point where they are now fleecing the peasant class. Let's talk about. I was just watching a video today about millennials and rent statistics. 45% of millennials aged 40 and under cannot afford a house. They can't buy one.
Yep.
And so all the millennials are righteously angry about that. Hey, look, I need a place to live. Why are all the houses so expensive? Oh, the oligarchs bought them all. And then they're renting them to me.
It's more insidious than that. Because our whole monetary system is based on debt. And there's an explosion in debt and things keep spiraling. And you need assets and you need assets to increase in value. So it's kind of like a house of cards and you keep increasing the values of things. But the oligarchs in some way are desperate because the debt is so huge. They owe a lot of money. They have a lot of assets, but it's a house of cards. And if it all comes tumbling down, they don't want that because they want to get their wealth out, but their wealth is all tied up in stuff and finances and debt. And so they have to keep squeezing the people more to pay the rent, to keep them in business. The debt is all consuming.
Well, in history, this has been handled one of two ways. The first way is the one that everyone kind of knows about, and that's the Great Depression. Or a monarch will come along and they will say, fuck it. No more debts. That is the biblical Jubilee sort of model.
And who usually gets kicked out of those countries during that time?
Well, yes.
The bankers. Nick, the answer is the bankers.
Yes.
Some have longer noses than others.
Well, the problem is that honestly, the problem is that they only kick out the bankers. They don't kick out other types too. There's more people than just the bankers involved in this, but
right.
I mean, who are the bankers lending money to buy your house so that you can't buy it, right? Yeah, the bankers are lending
over
them money.
inflation of the actual value.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the bankers are lending this person the money to do it, but that person is still doing that. And then they look at you and they go, well, haha, I got the loan and you couldn't. So, and then they wonder why people are angry at them. So, yes, there's a lot. There's a lot to work. We could do a whole show. We have done whole shows on economics.
We're talking. This sounds
what's
like
interesting
chaos.
here is Mr. Dugan is talking about the noblesse oblige a couple times here. So that's the idea to you are the ruler, you're the hierarch, and you have the obligation towards those under you in the hierarchy. The duties of superiors to inferiors in the hierarchy. or monarchy.
Right. Does that exist today? Is that a value
No.
that our leaders
It's a
have?
principle.
Do they have the value of noblesse oblige?
Well, that was kind of the whole point of the Democratic Party, which they've not done. They just use the mob. They use the mob and don't actually take care of the people. They just give them freaking handouts without fixing the actual problem. So this is the problem which we're actually seeing playing out on our streets right now with the federal government and the now designated terrorist organization, which is Antifa.
Okay, well, let's move into order versus chaos.
There we go.
That sounds like what you're saying is moving troops in is order, and our cities are chaos. Is that what you mean, Nick?
Yes, but not ideally. Yeah. There is always order, but there's these chaos elements like the Communist Party and Antifa, the also what's the term for people that reject all order? Anarchists. Yeah.
Well, Antifa is an explicitly anarchist organization, so there's no surprise there. I mean, Antifa is explicitly a chaos organization, and their entire manifesto, which is publicly available if you choose to read it, is they believe that the method they are Maoist Castroites, who they believe that the way to lead the communist revolution is to destabilize the corrupt institutions, and as they do so, people will naturally rise up to the proletariat will naturally rise up to support the revolution. But their entire model relies on destabilizing the existing order.
Stabilizing the existing Gramscian order. It's kind of funny.
Yes. Correct. Yes. Well, the irony there, of course, is that it is the Gramscian communists in our particular period of time. It is the Gramscian communists who control the institutions that the Maoist communists are trying to destabilize. There's a part of me that says, to the right, just step back and let them have at each other's throats, because we'll still be left standing when it comes time to pick up the pieces. You know,
so if these people get their way and they get all this chaos and the people rising up and the order of the system is broken down, what are we going to use for money? Because there is no more order, there is no more taxes, there is no more military, there is no more of
here comes my gold
transfer
bug
payments. What are we going to use for money? No, I'm not even talking about gold. Won't work.
No, it won't. No, well, yeah. Well,
so what do they think we're going to use for money?
Well, Antifa thinks you're going to use Bitcoin, which I find hysterical. It's just that the idea that you're going to use a form of money that requires every system humanity has ever been able to come up with to function properly, I find utterly hysterical. Frankly, I think the currency of the day will be beans and bullets. Food and the ability to get more food.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you're saying they haven't thought this through.
Nah. Antifa thinks something through? Perish the thought. Now, this is not to say they're stupid. I don't never make the mistake of thinking that your enemy is retarded. But there's very definitely aspects of this collapse that they... Oh, and you see this in the history of the Russian Soviet Revolution. They go through this revolution and they get to power and they have absolutely no idea what to do with it for like a decade. It takes them a decade to sort out how they're actually going to do this. And ironically,
and order isn't always imposed.
well, yeah, exactly. They end up imposing this hyper strict order on things. The purges, I mean, we all talk about Stalin's purges, but what most people don't realize is that there were purges before there was Stalin. And the purges were the very first thing that a communist revolution must do upon attaining power is purge the militants who brought them to power.
Absolutely.
And then
the useful idiots, basically.
Yes.
Are
and
you
then
saying
you
the
have
Bolsheviks purged the Mensheviks?
Yes. Because and then the next group that you have to purge is the ideologues. A communist revolution cannot stand ideologues. The ideologues you can stand them while you're purging the militant class because you need them around to justify it. But once the ideologue class, yeah, exactly. The ideologue class eventually comes up, eventually creates the justifications to take themselves out. It's really kind of hysterical. If it wasn't
so
such a
the true
human
believer Antifa will be some of the first people purged if they
yes.
succeed.
Yes.
Have they not studied history?
No, they actually have not. But more to the
Okay.
point, they actually, because I have actually talked to people, not Antifa, but people who support them, specifically the ideologue class, who support the Antifa is kind of like the militant arm, right? So I work in tech. I've chatted with people who support Antifa, and they will tell you that because of the purity of their devotion to the cause, that they will be spared this because they will finally create the utopia that does not require such purges to achieve success. They actually believe that it really will be different this time. And you could hook them up to a lie detector and they would pass with flying colors. They earnestly believe this, that this is true, that there will not be any purges required because the system they create is that perfect, is that tolerant, to use another word.
Okay. Look, guys, I don't know about you, but if a fascist regime, and they all accuse us of that shit, like if you're anywhere on the right, you're automatically assumed to be some sort of fascist because you don't agree with their shit. Look, if a totalitarian regime takes over to impose this shit, guys, as much as I'd like to say, yeah, I'm here for the long haul, and yeah, ideally, yes, but there might be a time where we shut this channel down, at least for a time. like,
yeah,
because we espouse truth, and it's the fascist side might not always like it, and certainly as hell, the communist side will not like it.
Well, there may come a point where a channel such as this is no longer necessary because things have progressed to the point where people can't get online. I honestly don't think that will happen. And we've done shows before where I go into the data and analysis about why. And one of the guys I follow, Mike Shelby, he's been hammering this point, and I fully agree with him. Your social media account has far more value than your AR-15 in the coming fight, because we aren't going to lose the internet. We aren't going to lose electricity. This isn't going to be, a few men with their wives in a compound in the hills somewhere surviving a nuclear apocalypse. That's not what this is going to be. This is going to be much more difficult than that. And your social media account gives you two things. First, it gives you the right to, it gives you not the right, the ability to speak up against the forces of chaos. And second, your social media account gives you the ability to become a censor network. you can observe and report what you are seeing. And I watched how effective that was on the H-1B debate. Elon Musk has his crash out on H-1Bs on like December 28th, his full, fuck your own face crash out. And by April, 4 months later, the anti-H-1B community has collected some of the highest quality data on immigration the world has ever seen, because they all got together on their social media accounts and they started putting their data in and their observations in it. Hey, have you seen this? Go check this out. And then somebody would, and they would plug that into their data, and you'd go, wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that was a thing. And then we can now, for the first time in our history, have a cogent conversation on immigration on the basis of hard data. So that's just my little soapbox spiel about the value of your social media account moving forward. Please stay on it. Keep going.
There are so many really smart people out there living in obscurity. And now they band together, like Plutarch was just talking about. They get enough information and, hey, I got this idea. Can you look at this? Somebody out there knows how to do it. And then those ideas pass around. It's like this little channel. We get, we got little over 100 subscribers. We get, I don't know, 50 views on YouTube and probably another 50 to 100 on Twitter, X. You might think we don't make a difference. Okay, maybe we don't. That's fine. I enjoy it anyway. But stuff we talk about here actually, kind of predictions we make show up and say, oh, gee, now I see it. It's blatant a year later. Or things we talk about here become, I wouldn't even say mainstream, but they become talked about a lot and moving towards mainstream.
We're
not
another
the
video.
only guys doing this. There are a lot of little streams out there. We are way ahead. There's such a minuscule amount of people watching us, but it shows where the world is going, and ideas build upon ideas. And you know what? You may be a person out there, and you may only influence 5 people. You think you don't matter? Bullshit. You might matter more than you know, because the way communications go in this world, things move. It takes time to build a consensus. But if an idea has value, it continues to move.
Well, we did a video a year ago. It's titled, "Is the Red Pill Amoral?" And now, this week, been a whole discussion about whether or not the red pill is amoral or not. Obviously, you can go watch the video for our opinion on that. I think some people might be
actually a few. We have a few on that. By the way.
Yeah, true. I think the first one we ever did was, I think, July of last year. So you'll have to dig back a ways to go find it. But
that wasn't even a thing. When we did that stream, everyone agreed that the red pill is amoral.
Just a praxeology.
We said, no, it's not. It's not a praxeology. Nope.
And we're red
we
pill,
were
by
the
way.
only guys pushing against it. And now it's coming out and being discussed.
Granted,
and we're red pill, by the way.
Well, right. We have contacts in the red pill space who knew of us, so they watched it, and that's like, it does matter who you know, and that's my point here. Like, we had contacts in the red pill space, people watched that, and it sparked a conversation. You don't know which of your contacts is going to be the one to spark the conversation in your community. So you have to be willing to have the conversation. You have to be willing to throw that idea out there. Are there people who disagree with us that the red pill is a moral good? Which is, spoiler alert, the conclusion we came to. Oh, God, yes. Most of the red pill still disagrees with us on that. But there are
That's
people
because
that
you also have to understand the red pill, as understood by the broader society, is all PUA shit, and it never was strictly PUA. It was just one brand of three. So, yeah.
Right. So
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish your thought, and then I'll move it on.
Well, the way to combat chaos is with order, is with sharing information, is with building networks. Networks are a form of order, by the way, guys. And so the only way that we will succeed in the future is the future chaos, and there is future chaos coming, is to have these the term is sorry, lost my train of thought. But the idea is that there's chaos coming, and the only thing that we have against them is our order, is our networks of people. Frankly, and I've said this before, Steve and Nick keep me in check. They keep my ideas from going too far one way or the other. And you guys will hear that occasionally I'll push back on Nick, or I'll push back, and then Steve will do the same to us. That's a small network that is that the order is maintained by keeping checks on each other. And then we, we'll here's some new data, guys, or here's a new idea, and then we all kind of attack it and talk about it, and we work it. Okay, that's a cool idea, or no, that's a shit idea, right? That is an ordered system. It doesn't look ordered because it's, it is not a top-down hierarchy necessarily in our case, but we use it as a check against the chaos of the world. Go ahead, Steve.
So we are over 2 hours in. We are finally back to where Nick started this, with logos versus pathos and ethos. So we better let Nick have his day, because this is a favorite thing of him, for him to talk about.
Okay, so in philosophy, there's interrelated truths of logos, ethos, and you could say worldview. But ethos and pathos is more emotionalism, passion. It should properly flow from ethos and logos. There's also a book written by one of my favorite people that I talked about here on The Resurgence of Sanity, which is Robert Louis Dabney, which is a 19th century theologian. He was also the chief of staff for the famous Stonewall Jackson, General Stonewall Jackson of the Confederacy in the 19th century. He was termed the most brilliant mind in the South, not America, in the 19th, early 20th century. He had a book called Evangelical Eloquence, which talks about the unity of bringing these three aspects together in harmony in his book, and he called them logos, ethos, and pathos. So logos, truth, doctrine; ethos, ethics; pathos, the passion that flows from truth; and morality or ethics, which you can call ethos. So they're all tied together in the creation of mankind. Yes, man is made in the image of God. He has a certain logos and ethos as who he is, created by God. There's a certain truth. There's a certain worldview. There's a certain metaphysic. So logos, truth, doctrine is united with how you are to be, the objective ethos of morale, or you can say morality of who you are, and the pathos, the passion that should flow from that truth or an ethic or morality. You should be passionate about the truth. You should be passionate about what is good, true, and beautiful, as C.S. Lewis would say as well. That's all I pretty much got to say at the moment. Again, this is impromptu, so there you go.
Well, we think of men as the logical creatures. Men use reason, women use emotion or passion. Okay, well, they're pitted against each other. Truth is, we need both. Men and women are different. Even us red pillars, who apparently hate women, we still like women for their passion. We may gripe about some of their behaviors, but it's their emotions that brings the spice to life. Women who complain about men, they still probably love men for the reason, rationality, and even though it pisses them off, well, that's you need both.
Yes, we need both, but right now we have an overwhelming amount of pathos and ethos and not enough logos. So I would go so far to say is, for the moment, we need more logos. And the Bible does not say that the Bible in the beginning was not pathos, in the beginning was not ethos, in the beginning was, Steve?
Logos.
I'm not saying pathos and ethos are bad or wrong, but we have drifted so far away from logos that into pathos and ethos that honestly, logos is where we need to go home.
Well, Nick said these three are a trinity. Okay.
True.
Fine. When we talk about the Trinitarian God, we have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There's a hierarchy there. So logos, pathos, and ethos. There'll be a hierarchy there.
Oh boy.
No.
Protestant versus Catholic fist fight. Here we go.
No, it's more East versus West, but simplicity of God type is actually Catholic and Protestant, but it's the complementarians that made a weird hierarchy of Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, there's Son, Holy Spirit equal in power and glory. Yes, they have distinct personal you say things, it's the improper term, but about them, yet they interpenetrate one another. There's there's a word there, circumnumsess, yeah, that's another word. Okay, anyways, yeah, equal in power, glory, where the Son is, the Father is, where the Holy Spirit is, the Father, Son is, etc., etc. Yes, and therefore we, as finite beings, we have a problem harmonizing these three particulars, yet there is no problem in the Godhead. God is all of his attributes all the time and in all harmony and perfection. He is fully just, he's fully loving, he's fully holy, he's all-knowing, he's everywhere perfectly all at the same time with no contradiction. Okay. Now, for us human beings, we are finite. We understand these things to a finite degree. Passion is not necessarily wrong. Ethos is not necessarily wrong. Logos is not necessarily wrong. However, we can take these separately from one another and use them wrongly.
So, okay, let me push back here, Nick. I agree. We have a mortal human understanding of these concepts, which is far lacking of what probably the truth is. but the Father sent the Son. So in that simple analogy, okay, the Father is kind of the hierarchy. And
Well, there's
the
one divine
passion,
will. You have to understand that. There's not
okay,
three divine
yeah,
wills.
okay,
There's one
I
divine will.
understand that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the passion has to be governed by the truth. So, yeah, passion for something that's not the truth is not true pathos. I can understand that. These three need to be united. And there's a feedback loop, but you know, you got to start someplace and say, so I'll start with the logos and say, let's start here, and then let's let the other two flow and be consistent with that. So it's a limitation of human understanding.
Okay. Well, this
Wherever
is
you
where I
want to
go with the
answer,
red
sure.
pill, where it's not amoral. It's not amoral. Like the truth always exists in a moral spectrum, and the passion always exists in the moral spectrum of the truth and what is right as well. Yes, you can distinguish them, but you can never separate them. Um, I think it's wrong to say it. I think from our finite human understanding, we're trying to say, did the chicken or egg come first? Well, yada yada. No, ingrained in our being as human beings, we are created with a passion. We're created with an ethos. We're created with a logos. However, we reflect to them. We reflect them in according to our finitude, but also B, according to our fallen state. And C, we still reflect to it imperfectly, even though we might be regenerated. There's still the sinfulness of how we never perfectly reflect these three things in harmony in this state where we are. However, we will reflect them perfectly in glory. So yeah, we can strive now. However, we should strive to have these all three in harmony. You should try to have a more perfect knowledge, and you should try to have your ethics, you, the righteous, your righteousness, your moral uprightness should also reflect how you relate to truth, and your pathos should also reflect to how passionate or zealous you are for rightness and truth in this life. You can see this perfectly in the zeal of Jesus Christ. So yeah, I'm a pastor, and so I'll tell you this: Christ displayed this perfectly in his incarnation, especially when you can see him in the temple. He drove out the money changers. He was a man zealous after God's own heart. There's the truth. There was how the money changers were rebelling against their truth, and Jesus was righteous and stood for the truth. And his pathos, how he drove them with a whip to get out of his father's house.
Let me just say something here. When Nick talks about this stuff, I can't really keep up. He has a much greater vocabulary and understanding of these things. So let me use this as an analogy. To be a Christian, you don't need to understand things on Nick's level, nor on my level. Nor are most people probably capable of doing that. So let's circle back to the beginning where we talked about principles versus values. The average person is not going to get into this level of detail in discussions, nor can they, nor do they have the time or desire or any of that. That's why values are necessary and a good thing, as long as there's people who do think about these things to keep them in check. And those of us who do dwell on the concepts, we're not going to be well liked because we're pushing back against the consensus. Hey, this is the way the world works. And you know what? I don't have a problem if people don't like me because I challenge people.
We actually, to Steve's point, we will actually say, we look at the subscriber count, and if it's going up, we say that we're not pissing enough people off. Like it's that mentality that Steve's talking about. Is like, you're welcome to disagree with us. You don't have to like us. We're not asking you to. All we're really asking is for people to stop and maybe think about things for a little bit. And tonight has put my brain in a blender, but that was kind of the point. And
are we going to have enough to talk about tonight with an unscripted thing and me just throwing some things up, saying, guys, react to this?
Now, to be fair, Steve didn't go completely off the deep end. Everything you see on the screen here is stuff that we have talked about before. Not necessarily all at the same time, but it's not like we were working with starting from nothing here. But you have to be able to, if you're going to communicate with people, if you're going to convince people that your view is right, you have to meet them where they are. And so part of my thought process behind structuring the show this way is for tonight was not necessarily to prove that Nick and I could do it. Nick and I both knew we could do it, but was to show our audience that it can be done. And that I'm not going to say that it's easy, but that it is good to be able to do stuff like this, to be able to speak extemporaneously on a topic like this. Yes, you have to have background knowledge and experience speaking on the topic. Anybody who, if you were to ask me to speak extemporaneously on the microbiology of the deep ocean floor, I'm just going to look at you and go, what's your problem? Okay.
You might be rather quiet.
Yeah, exactly. But if you want to be able to have a conversation with somebody who you just meet in life and they start talking about things, is going to be how, if we are to avoid the worst excesses of the coming color revolution, which means to defeat it, you're going to have to be able to do things like this, because the people you meet will, as we have said time and again throughout this show, and we will say on future shows, they just don't know what to think. You hear people complain, oh man, you got to tell all these people what to think. And I go, yeah, you do. And that's a good thing, because you get the opportunity to convince them to think like you. And tonight was a little bit of an example of one of the skills that you need to be able to do it.
Nick mentioned something earlier. So I'm going to make an analogy of this. You just need to put a virus into their mind.
Yeah.
Nick,
yeah.
My view of values, when I explained that, values versus principles, didn't that kind of act like a virus in your mind and cause you to reconsider and refine and change your views slightly, or at least the definitions?
It did because it turned the lights on political conversation that I was hearing. People saying family values, but they have no freaking clue what it's consensus driven. It's not principles, however. So you always kept talking about values versus principles. I said, well, these people in political high places, they have no principles on family, or if they do, they're silent, but they'll talk about all this family values, but the family values keep changing with the consensus.
So, okay, you're right, Nick. And I'm happy to have done that for you. But I'm using that as an example. Guys, all you have to do is put one little concept. And when I put that concept out to Nick, it wasn't in defiance or in an adversarial manner to anything he was thinking of. It was just this kernel of an idea. And then he kept it and he used this to reevaluate his view of the world and to better understand things. And then that kernel, that little seed of a thought, grew into something much bigger. That's how ideas propagate. It's simple. I mean, you don't have to convince anybody of any great thing to take your worldview on anything. Just put a little mind virus, an irritant in, or just a new idea. let it go.
Now, most people are not going to be quite as intellectually thorough as Nick is in his evaluation of something. And there's a lot of people who are going to say, particularly the theology bro sect, are going to say, but if they don't, this and that bad thing will happen. No, it's okay. It's okay to tell people what to think. It's okay to say, you know what?
Catechisms, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Exactly. It is okay. And here's why: people are begging you to tell them what to think because they are not. They simply lack the intellect and the time to do all of the thinking on their own. Most people in the world have an IQ of 100. Could they eventually work at this stuff all out? Yes. But if you recall our IQ episode, what do we call IQ? IQ is the speed at which you get to the right answer. Somebody moving at a perfectly average speed will take a perfectly average time to get to the right answer. But we don't have average amounts of time to get to the right answer, particularly as things get worse in the world. We are going to need the right answer at ever increasing speeds. Okay. So sometimes you're just going to have to tell people this is what you need to do and just let that be. And if they ask a question about why, answer it, please. That's what sets this kernel that gets them to think, hey, maybe you're on to something and they should listen to what you say. If they just outright dismiss you, they were never going to listen anyway. Their mind is possessed by a different idea.
There's a quotation attributed to Winston Churchill. Men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of them pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had happened.
That sounds like James a bit.
I was going to say, I don't know if that's Churchill, but there's a lot of truth in that assertion there.
There's a similar statement in the book of James talking about looking into the mirror and then forgetting. Yep.
Yeah, well, regardless of who said it, it's kind of true. So don't really worry. You're not going to change anybody's mind. You might give a kernel of truth, and it might stick with them, and they might think about it for a while. and it'll go someplace. That's relatively few people will do that. Most people will just disregard and move on as if nothing happened. But amazingly, good ideas do grow, and if you the things you discover, you will find that they will become more prevalent in the future, because there's something else, and I can't explain it. The same idea happens simultaneously in different places, and it grows. Like, who invented the radio? Oh, us Americans say Samuel Morse. The Italians say it was Marconi. Is it possible that both of them developed the same thing at approximately the same time on opposite parts of the world, and they were both innovators? Yeah, well, I kind of think that's true, because I come up with something, well, rediscover. I don't come up with anything new. And then someone else over there comes up with something, and then all of a sudden it becomes more of a popular idea. Did it come from me? Or was it just 5, 10, 100 people simultaneously coming up with the same observation and realization, because it was time for that to happen?
The availability of the information plus the willingness to see it. The availability of the truth plus the willingness to see it. That's the only way that can happen.
Providence of God.
Yeah.
The providence of God.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's the only way that can happen. Well, I think we're done. My brain is cooked. Thank you, Steve. You delivered.
You're welcome.
So for next week, I had another idea, but it's going to be a Nick and I working together on it. Nick, are you up for that?
Yeah. What was it again?
The idea was magic dirt.
Yeah. That's right.
It's what we're calling magic dirt. Magic dirt is not my idea per se. I picked it up from Devin Erickson, actually. I've talked about him before. And a few other people have talked about it. The basic idea is that when an immigrant moves to a place, that just by appearing in that place, they automatically assume all of the characteristics of that place they're in. But we were talking about it, and there is application to. I'm scrolling back through lots and lots of notes here. Here, I'm gonna have to. Okay. There's applications to birth rates, the divorce system, and what I'm calling baby marriage, which is a particular TradCon trend that I think is actually going to end up being in the future perceived as evil. It's a TradCon Christian trend. I see a lot of Christians pushing this. And so I want to take that idea from immigration and take it over and apply. And so what the overarching goal of this idea would be to show how just because you're right versus left doesn't mean that the right isn't using the same type of fallacious logical thinking that the left is. So the left has magic dirt thinking on immigration. but the right has magic dirt thinking on relationships, and that's Nick and I can both deal with that. I have a new chart. No one, as far as I know, in the world has put this chart together. So it lives in Excel on my computer right now. I will bring that, and it is dealing with birth rates, which, of course, if we're going to talk about baby marriage, we have to talk about birth rates.
Man, we just can't get enough guys in the church to marry these women. Oh, it's like they're imbibing this toxic red pill, black pill crap. And
yes,
man, they just won't even date these women anymore.
I'll tell you, I have a comment on magic dirt. I will believe the magic dirt theory when the Somalian immigrants to Minnesota start eating lutefisk in Lutheran church basements.
Yeah. So that's the idea. Nick, if you're up for that, I can bring my nerdy charts and we can have it'll be much more like our typical conversations next week. It will not be this sort of weird thing where we don't share notes. Go ahead, Nick.
Hey, we had a great discussion tonight. I mean,
we did.
We kind of tied in a lot of things we've talked about in the past.
No, this will be good. This will be
a lot of philosophical things. Hopefully, our audience enjoyed it.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, you got dropped off there. What were you saying? Yeah, his internet's struggling, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, which means it's probably time.
I was just gonna say, man, we can have some Galrock versus. Yeah, my internet's crap. Okay, sorry guys.
It is. Well, guys, guess what? You'll have to tune in next week to find out what Nick was saying as the internet cuts in and out tonight. So, yeah, I guess next week we're going back. We're going back to flinging arrows at the trad cons, because, and what I will say is this is a couple of years ago now, way back when we were collaborating with Glenn Lawrence. He showed me this video, and it was the Daily Wire crew sitting around, and Jeremy Boring gets up and he says, "Oh, well, guys, you just need to get married now, and because fixing the law is going to take a long time. And so you just need to get married now." And I don't know why, but that video has stuck with me to this day. It so bothered me that he just got up there. I realized this morning as I was thinking about it, that was a mask off moment. I'll explain more next week, but that video was a mask off moment where Jeremy Boring actually, for once, really showed you how the TradCons actually think about you. And so that's going to be part of what I'll be bringing to the table next week. But that 2 years over, almost 2 years later, and I'm still gnawing on that one. So, yeah, that'll be next week. Kind of a long-winded intro to the idea for next week. Yeah. If you guys liked what you heard, share it, please. This was a fun one. We kind of did this a bit as an example to others to show that these kinds of topics can be discussed extemporaneously, and that there is utility in being able to do so. So, if you know other men who want to, or maybe there was an idea in here, I'm sure there's going to be lots of clippable moments out of this one. Share this with people people who need to hear this. If you liked it, you can drop a like. Subscribes are probably more useful to the algorithm if you want to help spread the word of the Resurgence. And if you have questions, drop a comment. I will answer if I can. Otherwise, I'll have to forward you to one of the other guys. And yeah, do you guys have any final words to say? Nope.
No.
I'm not sure we would know if Nick did because he's so choppy right now. Oh yes, I'm supposed to remind you to join on Saturday. Saturday is my wife is going. She's going to go dig through her bullshit folder again, and offer up some fodder to react to. So it Saturday will be very much an older style red pill video. And yeah, next week we discuss what we'll be doing then. So I guess we'll see you all then.
Okay.
Later.
Bye.
Take care.
There was a firefight! Son of a